Monster created the space. If you think of how we look at online career advancement, development, tactically getting a job. Hi, I'm Eric Weingardner, Vice President of Client Adoption for Monster.com. Monster was the 454th commercial internet site. So when you think of how many millions of them that there are today, and surviving the dot bomb, the world of business was fundamentally different in 1994. Many people who are entering the workforce today couldn't actually conceive of work the way it exists. I couldn't personally have said to my guidance counselor, I'm going to be in the internet business when I grow up, because it didn't exist. So to think about how work has changed, how business has changed in just a short period of time illustrates the amount of change that Monster actually thrives in. What was so new about it was just the fact that it was the internet. And when you think of Monster, was originally the Monster board. So it was nothing more than just a virtual bulletin board where you could pin up your job advertisement. Very basic to when you think of help wanted signs in the window. This was help wanted signs in the virtual window. But it was very new. And we used to call people on the telephone in our telesales organizations and introduce the World Wide Web. There's this really cool new thing called the internet. And how you could use it in employment. It was truly innovative, nothing like it existed. And we used to say it's a newspaper that anyone, anywhere can read. When we talk about our customers, we're talking about either job seekers, people who are looking to advance their career or manage their career long term. And we have fantastic products for those customers around benchmarking. What is my path? Where have people gone before? What can someone with my skill sets do for a living? And then how do I stack up to those who are out there, right? On the other side, it's this, how do I find and access the world of talent, the people who are there? So that is an employer focus, and what we do that primarily with is to allow employers to tap into the broadest audience. How do you get the message out about your employment brand, who you are, what you stand for, so that we can connect with today's talent, which is much more purposeful about where they work and where they spend their time. So a lot of it is around brand engagement, building your message, and then distributing that message to the most broad audience. The company literally started with a handful of people, just as all companies do. All great American stories start with, one person and then a small team. And I think that as the globalization became the way you grow your business, we were certainly on the cutting edge of that. It's always smart to start your expansion close to home. So Canada was the first place that Monster chose to expand our global footprint. And today we're in 60 different countries. Global was always our target because people work everywhere.
At Monster, actually, we see our global presence as a really important differentiator as a brand. So obviously we founded in the United States and we've grown, started in Western Europe and have branched out and grown from there. And if you want to be a global player, you absolutely have to be in China. You just look at both the scale of the market in raw numbers, but also in terms of how fast it's going to grow. I don't think we could call ourselves a global provider and not be in China. Hi, my name is Ted Gilvar, and I'm Executive Vice President, Chief Global Marketing Officer at Monster Worldwide. China is growing so fast as a market that people of different age brackets and of different geographies are incredibly different and diverse. And so trying to find a way to market to them in a mass way and in America in what would be a homogenous way is really, really challenging. It's not even one market, it's really a collection of a lot of smaller markets. So if you're in Beijing or Shanghai, it's actually a very different place than if you're in some of the smaller cities in the West. When it comes to job search, there's actually retail outlets that have jobs on display in a sort of self-serve, walk-on-by way. So it's a very localized market that way, and as we think about bringing that experience to the internet, which is ultimately scaling it and doing it in a bigger mass way, you have to be respectful of the way, everyday jobs, the way they get them. Some of the research that we've done has said the local conditions and the local job seekers and customers aren't really looking for the same level of career management tools and some of the things that in a mature market like here we all sort of come to expect. They're still in a much more transactional mode over there, and they really are looking for a job search resource that just helps them find the right job, and really that's it. One of the tenets we use is to think local and act global, which is to say we want to let every market be successful on its own terms, but then when we bring the brand to life, we want to do that in a really consistent way everywhere we are in the globe. Once we made a sort of strategic decision that we wanted to be in China, ultimately, like anywhere, it's a sort of, you have to sort of decide whether you want to build it or whether you want to buy it. And I think in a market like China, starting from scratch and building it really was a challenging undertaking, in large part due to the language and the differences in intricacies of the language. And so to try to take a US-based product and export it there, I don't think would have made as much sense. We have adapted our product a little bit. So we did make an acquisition with China HR and are beginning to integrate that into the Monster way of doing business. But we're really respectful of the way they've brought their product to market there. And we don't just want to take the US-centric way of doing it and try to export that to China, because I don't think that would be respectful of the differences in the culture there, but also the site experience and the way people interact with jobs is it's just very different there. And so as we think about evolving the site and making the experience customer focused there, we are really mindful about doing that in a way that makes sense for there. And then when we communicate and then when we market there, you also have to be respectful of the local culture and custom by acquiring a company that had some expertise in the market anyway, that when we actually add our product innovation and some of the things that we know we do really well to their infrastructure, it just made a lot more sense than trying to build that all on our own. We've added some new talent in China from a marketing perspective at least, who really understand some of the nuance at a local market level. And so we've got some programs going on right now in Western China as a way to try to expand some of these real high growth, smaller markets that are really sort of yet to burst, and try to do it in a way that meets their local culture and local needs. One of the nice things for us is as the world economy continues to struggle a bit, we're actually seeing China come back faster than some other markets right now. So we're very happy that we're there, and we're also seeing a lot of the East Korea is coming back quickly, China's coming back quickly, India's coming back quickly, and so it's really important for us from a global footprint standpoint to have enough diversification that when those markets come back faster, we actually reap the rewards of that.